There's one canal that's very special to us.
40 years ago, we discovered the joys of canal boating here for the first time.
OK, group, cast off, please. OK.
This week we're repeating that first journey, following the gentle contours of the Oxford Canal.
Amazing nature, birds and animals.
For part of the journey, we'll be joined by our son, fellow actor Samuel West.
My brother described our first trip down the canal as narrowboat pinball.
But this is much more than a trip down memory lane. It's a pilgrimage to a sacred site in canal folklore, Tooley's Boatyard.
Brilliant.
It was the voyage that began here in 1939 that saved Britain's canals. But we'll discover why this waterway is once again in peril.
There was an extraordinary atmosphere about the canal here that is being threatened.
And I'll be drawing attention to its plight.
Oh yes! Oh yes! Oh yes!
As we look into the past and to the future of canals.
The historic city of Oxford. Tourists flock here from all over the world to admire her dreaming spires. But for us, the city has a more personal significance.
So, before we pick up our canal boat, I'm taking Prue on a short walk to somewhere we went when we were both young actors.
It was a day like this, summer, hot day.
Yes.
And it must have been the weekend because neither of us was actually playing. And we'd been having a sort of postal flirtation for some time. And we went punting and we went and had a meal somewhere. Suddenly we found ourselves outside the Eastgate Hotel and the rest is history.
Gosh.
Do you remember?
Yes, I do. Of course
Yeah.
I do. I'm just shy about it.
Yeah.
And so our journey begins where it all started many years ago.
I love this stretch.
I know. Oh, look. Gorgeous.
Tucked away, hidden from the tourist hordes, our hire boat awaits us.
Right. Very, very heavy.
Okay.
Yep, fine.
Right, well, let's have a look.
Right.
See what we got. That's all fairly familiar, isn't it?
Yeah. Nice vessel.
Bed, standard.
Right.
Cupboard, standard. Ducks, standard. Geese, occasional.
Those geese are so fat, aren't they?
Yeah, they do all right.
Mm.
Okay, Prue, cast off, please.
Okay.
Hold on. Look.
This first stretch is in fact part of the River Thames, or the Isis, as it's known in Oxford. The canal proper starts a little further downstream. Travelling out of Oxford, we'll head through the Cherwell Valley to the market town of Banbury.
This journey is partly a pilgrimage to the home port of the author and canal legend, Tom Rolt.
In 1939, from Tooley's Boatyard in Banbury, Tom embarked on an epic voyage north, along the then dying network. His famous record of that journey, Narrowboat, captures the last days of a nearly 200-year-old way of life. Tom and his book ignited a campaign that went on to save Britain's canals from complete closure.
Tim and I have got a lot to thank him for.
Look on the top of that boat, Tim.
It's got life.
But this stretch seems to be sinking back into a state of dereliction. Tom Rolt would be none too pleased.
Interesting bicycle.
Yes.
Graffiti town.
We first took this route 40 years ago, but we've been warned that there have been some changes recently. for the worse.
Well, you would expect Oxford to be full of fairly accomplished graffiti artists, wouldn't you?
All who come around here except
Expressive.
Things still look pretty grim as we approach the Isis lock. It's here where we'll leave the Thames and join the canal proper.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Welcome to the Oxford Canal.
That's just lovely little bag.
There to help us through the almost abandoned-looking lock is Waterways historian and author Mark Davis.
I have very happy memories of Oxford in the old days, but I gather there's been a certain amount of rethinking around the...
It's been kind of neglected, really. I mean, I feel almost ashamed to welcome people into the lot because it's looking very shabby.
It's a far cry from when this canal was a crucial transport link between London and the Midlands, over 200 years ago.
The Oxford was one of those first four, and well, you could argue it was the most important because when this lock was created, it was the shortest water route to London.
Opened in 1774, the Oxford was one of the first canals to be built in this country, and was designed to bring coal south to the city and on to London.
Oxford is a long way from the nearest port, a long way from the nearest coalfield, and therefore, to get a regular supply of coal was absolutely critical.
It was reasonably successful in the early days, wasn't it?
I think it was very successful. Up until the railways ate into their profits, made a lot of money, I think.
Time to move on, if I can get this winding gear to turn.
stuck. Oh, no, it isn't. Beg your pardon. It isn't.
When you're getting on a bit, you'll need a little more TLC, something this old lock could certainly do with.
Bye.
Once through the Isis lock, we're on to the actual canal. Heading north, we'll meander our way past sleepy villages and tackle the rare diamond locks. Heading on from Lower Hayford, in 4 leisurely days we should reach Banbury.
But this first stretch is not the canal as we remember it.
Not very mixed emotions about this, because on one hand it's lovely to be back on the canal, but on the other hand there was an extraordinary atmosphere about the canal here that is being threatened.
Before Tom Rolt kick-started their restoration, canals were symbols of industrial decline. Developers wouldn't touch a canal-side property with a barge pole. But today they're in great demand, which is not necessarily always good news.
Such a shame screening the canal from the people there, and no way now of mooring boats, getting them out of the water.
Behind these ugly walls is Jericho, home to a once vibrant and beautiful boatyard that has recently been at the centre of a dispute between developers and locals.
Long before the developers were on the scene, this stretch of canals inspired Oxford-based author Philip Pullman, whilst writing his famous fantasy trilogy, His Dark Materials. The heroes of Philip's tales are the nomadic boat people who traverse an imaginary network of waterways, which is why he decided to give something back to the real canal, and now campaigns to save the Jericho boatyard.
How did you get involved with this group?
Because I'd written about the canals in an imaginary Oxford, with an imaginary community of boat dwellers. I thought I'd give a bit of energy to helping it survive.
He became the voice of a campaign that successfully blocked a plan to build 54 luxury flats on the historic boatyard site.
The particular spot where the boatyard used to be, and will be again, we hope, is charming because you've got the church behind, a sort of Venetian-looking church. When the boatyard was active, you had real work being done, all going on in plain view, and I loved that.
But there's good news. Thanks to the campaign, the Jericho plans have now been changed. There will be a new boatyard here and a chance to revitalise this special part of Oxford. But this canal still needs looking after.
As if the canal was proving a point, we've run aground.
It's telling us it needs our support.
Yes, but did it have to do that when we've got a best-selling author aboard?
Can I do anything?
Try and keep us going with the engine, would you?
Yep.
Forward.
It's all a bit embarrassing.
Anything I can do, Tim? Are we free?
Moving a little bit. There we go. Oh, well done.
Well done. Yeah.
It's adventure.
Free at last. It's time to return Philip Pullman to safety and continue our journey to Thrupp, where in a couple of hours we'll moor up for our first night on the canal.
It feels good to be back on more familiar waters.
I love looking into the gardens and wondering what people's life story is.
This is the Oxford as we remember it, and it offers up a whole other world of childhood magic. The willows here inspired another of our finest authors, Kenneth Grahame, who grew up near this canal. He brought the world of river and canals to life with the children's classic, The Wind in the Willows.
I've played Toad on stage, but there's one other character I can really identify with. It's the only thing, said the water rat solemnly. Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing so much worth doing as messing about in boats. Simply messing.
"Look ahead, Rat," said the mole suddenly.
Sorry. We've got these willows, you can't see anything, can you? It's all that.
What was all that about?
It's a contact sport.
Give us a warning, or I might lose my hat.
We'll try.
Kenneth Grahame not only grew up close to the canal, he also went to a canal-side boarding school. Whilst Prue is off to find out about the real-life ratties who live along the banks of the Oxford, I'm heading to St Edward's to meet the school's headmaster to discover how this canal helped to inspire Kenneth Grahame to write Wind in the Willows.
Well, we've got a wonderful mural here in our dining room of the Kenneth Grahame thing, really, with Toad and Badger.
Yeah.
And indeed, right in the middle of that mural, there's a picture of Kenneth Grahame himself, based on one of the photographs of him as a boy when he was here.
So, much of what appears in the book must have had an early inspiration from here, mustn't it?
And I'm sure the river itself, and indeed the canal, those scenes where he comes across the canal and the horse pulling a barge in that lovely 19th century way, would probably have come from here. I think later in his life he will have come across the Ratty and so on characters, and perhaps Ratty as the bank bureaucrat, and Toad as the slightly eccentric aristocrat of the 19th century.
Pooh. Indeed. It's a wonderful piece of work, I think.
Kenneth Grahame based Ratty on the real water rats, or water voles, who thronged the Oxford Canal in his day.
Swimming along quite fast there.
But on today's canal, they've all but vanished.
It's the mink that are the real problem for them.
Wildlife conservationist Julia Lofthouse is working to save our dear friend Ratty.
What waterfowls normally do is if they're sense danger is they jump into the water, disappear into one of their underwater burrows.
Yeah.
But the female mink's actually small enough to follow them into the burrows, so they just can't get away from them.
Is it the mink rich people wear?
Not anymore, but yeah, the mink that are around now descended from the mink that originally kept in fur farms.
Yes.
A lot of them escaped and they've just colonised our waterways.
Right.
So the naughty mink are the culprits. But the habitat along the canal is also important. While Julia and her team work to cull the mink, they also try to protect Ratty's home.
And another one there.
We're basically looking for the signs that they've been here.
Yes. Might we see one?
I don't think so, but we've got a very good sign that they've been here. So down here we've got a little pile of these, which is a waterfowl dropping.
Right.
So that's a vole marking its territory.
Really?
It's the only thing, said the water rat solemnly. Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats.
In or out of them, it doesn't matter. Nothing seems really to matter. That's the charm of it. Whether you get away or whether you don't. Whether you arrive at your destination or whether you reach somewhere else. Or whether you never get anywhere at all. You're always busy and you never do anything in particular.
And when you've done it, there's always something else to do. And you can do it if you like, but you'd much better not.
We're on a trip down memory lane on the Oxford Canal.
This is where we first fell in love with narrowboating, 40 years ago.
To highlight the new threats that face the Oxford, we're on our way to Tooley's boatyard at Banbury, an almost sacred spot for canal buffs. Today, we're heading for the unique diamond locks at Shipton, before pushing on to Somerton Deep Lock and our mooring for the night.
For this leg, our son, actor Samuel West, is joining us, and before he arrives, Tim is doing his best to get things ship-shape.
Every boat design is different. This one features a dustpan but no brush.
You're talking to me?
Where are you?
I'm just finishing my makeup. Oh.
Shall I ever see you again?
Yes.
All right.
Well, quite shortly, I'm afraid.
Mornings have never been our finest hours together.
I'm not a morning person. Prue is. She gets up very early.
I'm very bad in the evening. If I'm in a show, I have to have a kip before the curtain goes up. We have to meet for lunch occasionally to catch up with the news.
Ray Lonnan, did you know him?
Who?
Ray Lonnan.
No.
I worked with him occasionally. Just died.
Oh. How old was he?
1940 he was born, so 74.
Oh dear.
Last bit of news. I go from weather to the obituaries.
They are sad, but obituaries remind us to enjoy each and every day.
And there's no time for gloomy thoughts, as the next generation of boater has just arrived.
Hello! Ahoy, I brought lunch.
Well done!
Our son Sam caught the canal bug when he was a boy.
What's your boat like? Hello. It's all right. It's very green.
And over the years he's become an experienced boater. So it'll be great to have him aboard for the locks that lie ahead.
I may need some help with this.
Coming. Okay. Sam's coming.
Brilliant.
When we first made this journey, back in the 1970s, we were so inspired we kept a record of our adventures.
Do you remember the first time we were here?
Drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
You wrote a log, which I have read so many times since that I actually know by heart. And it goes,
There we go.
it goes, and round the corner Thrupp, where we moored for the night, and to add to our evening at the boat, a group of Morris dancers appeared and performed on the lawn.
When by popular demand I stop acting and look around for something better to do, I think Morris dancing is an occupation that will claim my attention with less alacrity than most. We've all known the misery of having to perform in waywardly inappropriate costumes, but the Morris costume does seem to me to embody the worst excesses of a Bavarian Sunday afternoon.
Imagine coming out of the pub at 11 o'clock and realising you've still got bells around your knees and having to cycle home in the rain.
Very touching if you know it by heart.
I just thought it was so funny when I was 11. I think it's quite funny now. Those first logs from our canal trips in the 70s are masterpieces of deliberate incompetence. You know, it was so funny that we were so rubbish at it.
31st of May, 1976. T. Weston family pick up boat at 2:30. Owner gave brief demonstration of how to handle, then left. It started to rain heavily, but we pressed on happily, only striking one vessel. I like to think we've learned a bit over the intervening 40 years.
My brother described our first trip down the canal as narrowboat pinball.
Yeah.
You get there eventually.
Yeah.
Designed as a contour canal, the Oxford follows the lay of the land. By twisting and turning like a river, it rarely changes level, and locks are kept to a minimum, which saved the investors money, but cost the boaters time. But we're in no hurry, and a bit of meandering suits us just fine.
Yellow and green bill. No, they're all males.
Oh my God!
Eventually we reach Shipton Weir and one of those rare locks, and it's a tricky one too. Sam is getting ready to do battle.
I don't need gloves.
No, I know, because you're hard.
Ah!
This is a diamond lock, one of only two on the entire canal network. It's shallow, and the wide diamond shape is designed to compensate for its lack of depth, allowing a larger volume of water to flow through it.
It's a strange thing. I've only seen two of them. They're both on the Oxford around here. It's designed to contain as much water as possible so that it lets plenty down to the next pound.
Sam's right. It lets enough water through to fill up the deeper locks further along the canal. But without the usual close walls to guide the boat through.
It's a completely frustrating shape.
And a narrow entrance. It's hard to navigate, even after 40 years of practice.
Really very good. Drifter.
I know, it's a slightly dodgy name for a boat, isn't it?
Two drifters off to see the world.
That's your song.
Such a lot of world to see.
So just under this bridge is the station where we began our first ever canal holiday in the long hot summer of 1976.
That's well remembered.
We parked in the car park and carried all our luggage totally illegally and highly dangerously across the lines.
Oh!
And then up there and met the boat about 200 yards down on the right. I remember it like it was yesterday.
It was sort of the best holiday, wasn't it?
Feels like only yesterday that our two boys, Joe and Sam, were running up and down the towpath, opening and shutting locks, and at the end of the day, flopping exhausted onto their bunks.
It was just lovely when you left me and Dad to eat and drink, and when you collapsed. When it was collapsed to sleep in the evening.
It was all a plot, I see.
Not on purpose.
Even though Sam has got a child of his own now, he's still my boy.
Time is like a never-ending canal. You can't stop it. You can't slow it. You just have to enjoy the ride for as long as you can.
You keep thinking, yes, we must do that. now because it might be our only last chance. You know, sorry, but when you get to my age, you do start thinking, is this the last car I'll ever buy? Is this the last cat we'll ever own?
I hope not.
Is this the last job I'll ever do?
You know, it might be the last time we ever go on the Southern Oxford together, but something about the necessity of having to do what you need to do to get where you're going stops you thinking about that too much, I think.
It's a sort of bodily function, isn't it?
Yeah. At the same time, Ma says, you know, although she doesn't always know quite where she's going, she knows exactly what to do to get her there.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's as good on locks as she was.
Prue may know how to handle them, but it seems that one of our fellow travellers does not. And there's a bottleneck at the next lock.
Sorry?
Oh, is it? Oh.
It's worse than I first thought.
The guy said the top gate was smashed. Right. I don't know that it's fatal, but we'll have to go and see.
A smashed gate is very bad news and could put the whole lock out of action.
Sam was saying that this could be the last time we do this lock together. The last time we're on the Oxford Canal together. Well, the way it looks, our journey could be ending right here. We're on a pilgrimage along the Oxford Canal to the home port of legendary canal writer and campaigner Tom Rolt. Leaving Oxford 2 days ago, we've reached the halfway point at Allen's Lock. But there's a problem.
What happened?
I haven't seen that before.
That threatens to end our journey early.
He just went straight into it, apparently. He blamed something else, but obviously he didn't stop.
A boater has managed to smash into the lock gate with considerable force.
If the gate failed, the boat and the owner would be under the bridge and smashed up.
Canal gates weigh upwards of 2 tons, so knocking one off its hinges is not a clever idea. Fortunately for the moment, the lock gates work, after a fashion.
But the skipper is keen to spend as little time in the faulty lock as possible.
Come on, Mum.
You have to keep remembering that you're dealing with something very powerful and a lot of water in a lock. If you mess about with it, it can do yourself and other people quite a lot of damage.
Danger past, we can all take it easy for a while. One can never fail to relax on a canal.
Amazing nature on the boat, plants and birds and animals.
Designed by the canal pioneer James Brindley at the very start of the canal age, the Oxford used to carry corn and stone, as well as coal, up until the mid-1960s. It has none of the hard straight lines of later waterways, nor was it ever lined with factories. Winding its way past villages, through fields and woods, it seems to take us back to a pre-industrial age. And that's what I call good crewing. Thank you, darling.
Tea break over.
Sammy?
It's time to tackle the next lock. Somerton Deep. Its name a warning of a 12-foot rise.
This is the deepest lock on the Oxford. And it's as impressive today as it was the first time we came across it.
It's quite sort of scary. A lot of water.
which found this lock rather frightening. Pretty though it looks. When the wind's up and you come here at the end of the day, you'll often feel that you're a long way from home.
It's the last lock where I can enjoy Sam's help. He's leaving us at the next stop.
The sad moment arrives. Sam is heading home to his own young family.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, look, the sun's come out.
It's been wonderful to relive those family memories from so many years ago.
Great day.
See you soon.
Yep.
Love to the outdoors.
Yes, thank you very much.
And it's clear that Sam still loves the canals, and I'm certain he'll pass that on to his own child.
Before the day is done, we've got an appointment a few miles further on. We're heading for high tea with an old friend, Sonia Rolt.
Oh, just to see you.
And you.
Sonia was married to late canal legend Tom Rolt, and like her husband, has had a lifelong passion for our inland waterways, which began during the dark days of the Second World War.
Sonia, before the war, did you know anything about canals and canal
I
boats?
didn't even know what a canal sort of was. I was lucky enough to work at Hoover's, Perivale, and then one of us picked up some little entry saying, girls, there is a voluntary arrangement being made for girls to man canal boats. So we all went and had interviews.
The canal network was vital for the war effort, but with so many men conscripted into the army, there was a desperate need for female recruits. And after only 6 weeks' training, Sonia and her 2 girlfriends found themselves in charge of a pair of 70-foot narrowboats heading north.
So, what kind of merchandise would you be carrying?
It was mostly the heavy requirements for making munitions, steel, aluminium, taking them north and coming south with coal for London.
Sonia and the other women came largely from middle-class backgrounds, and the hard work and tough conditions on the canals were at first a shock. This new all-female canal merchant navy was initially resented by traditional boat people. Wearing badges stitched with the letters IW for inland waterways, Sonia and her pals were dubbed idle women. But it wasn't long before these intrepid girls won the respect of their male counterparts.
There were quite a lot of young men in this reserved occupation, and so we had quite a following, you know. So that was an additional pleasure.
At the war's end, Sonia campaigned to save the canals and improve the conditions for families who still lived and worked on them. In the early 1950s, she met and fell in love with fellow campaigner and author Tom Rolt. Tom's book, Narrowboat, charted his journey through Britain's decaying network.
It was indeed the inspiration for a movement which could preserve the waterways. Nobody's understood quite how after the war there was grave danger of them being absolutely, completely disregarded. So it really was a close-run thing.
Together, Sonia and Tom dedicated much of their lives to saving our canals. As a family, we have a lot to thank them for those happy family memories we've made on the canal, and for all the journeys we are yet to make.
Tomorrow we'll reach Banbury, the place where Tom Rolt's legendary voyage began. It's the last day of our journey, and an early autumn mist has descended on the canal, and my mood.
The weather sets my mood for everything.
But typically, Prue sees the positive side.
The lovely thing about the canal is the weather changes so quickly. So, on the whole, it doesn't let you feel too sad for too long, or too
triumphant for too long.
We set off from Oxford 3 days ago on a canal pilgrimage. We are now nearing the historic boatyard at Banbury.
But first we're meeting a woman who expresses her love for canals in verse. Poet Jo Bell.
Oh! I'll see you on the other side.
Recently, Jo has been given a special honour.
So you are our Canal Poet Laureate.
I am.
The first ever.
Yes, and possibly the only ever at this rate. Yes, I'm the Canal Poet Laureate.
That's a lovely idea.
My mission is to explain a little bit about canals and to bring people to the water who wouldn't normally look at it too closely.
Jo has written a poem dedicated to one of my favourite birds on the canals, the kingfisher.
A fishing fly, a flying fisherman, a Harley Davidson, a perfect gun, the bullet that starts the hull. A ball thrown bank to bank, just out of sight, too fast to catch. A run, a zip, a scoot, a zoom, a crossbow shot, a firebrand, a sting, a dash, a nip, a sprint. The river's knuckle duster comes flashing its little fist. And you, open-mouthed as a fish on a hook. No one there when you look.
Brilliant.
So,
I'd love to read one.
Prue's asking, can she read one?
oh, of course, yes.
I have to look at it
You're
first.
a long
You'll
thin
chat
person.
among yourselves while I read. How to live on a narrow boat. Walk slowly and quite often sideways. There is no room for books or vases, sentiment, redundant shoes. Within the span of a tall man's arms, live lively as a woman's hands, mindful of one need which can be met by moving on, and always buoyant.
Ever buoyant and ever moving on, we've reached the last lift bridge before Banbury.
This is the one where I'm going to leave you, I think, and go back to the world of man.
Being counterweighted, it needs a bit of brute force.
Oh, done. Ah, terrific. Well done.
Well done.
Okay, I'll see you next time.
Brilliant.
Have a good
Cheers.
trip.
We've reached the outskirts of Banbury. It's a town that seems to have turned its back on the canal.
What you see is an enormous shopping mall and an even more enormous car park. And when you walk through the shopping mall and out the other side, you find there's a very attractive old town that is completely hidden from the canal.
If you didn't know, you would never guess that Banbury is home to the oldest working dry dock on the inland waterways, first opened in 1790. It also played a central role in more recent canal history.
When Tom Rolt, Sonia's husband, great canal writer, had his first boat built, that was built at Tully's.
But he'd be shocked to see the boatyard today.
It says danger, strictly no admittance.
How did they allow it for this to happen?
It seems virtually swallowed up by a shopping centre. But fortunately, inside this scheduled ancient monument, the old traditions are still alive.
The actual frame here, this would have been the original roof, because they actually built onto this frame. But we still do things traditionally here. It's all basically done the same way. It's been done for the last 200 years. But we are in a bit of a bubble here, because everything else has changed. Shopping centres and housing, all gone up around us, and we're still here, doing the work in the same way as this dry dock was designed for.
I'm fascinated how you get that thin red line. I thought you were doing it by hand, but actually you've got a sticky tape which you paint over and then you strip it away. Ah! Brilliant.
Back in 1939, the skilled craftsmen of Tulis were busy transforming an old working boat for author Tom Rolt.
On an afternoon in the last week of July, the great moment arrived when we slipped Cress's mooring lines and drew slowly away from the boatyard, heading northwards.
His account of that voyage woke the nation to what we were about to lose.
There is something indescribably forlorn about these abandoned waterways.
Thanks to Tom and those that followed him, the Oxford Canal is busier than ever.
But it's clear from our own journey that it still needs protecting from neglect and over-eager developers. Which is why I'm donning this faintly ridiculous costume.
We welcome you here this morning for the loyal company of Town Criers British Championship.
Hello there. Oh, great to see somebody dressed properly.
It's the perfect opportunity for Tim to speak out about the plight of the Oxford Canal.
Full of festivals.
It's very good.
By the Sunday Times.
The practice dates back to medieval England, when town criers would cry out the latest news.
Oh, yay! God save the Queen!
When it comes to town crying, I'm a complete novice.
Blimey, I'd like to follow.
And I'm overcome by a severe case of first-night nerves. I've performed Shylock, Falstaff and King Lear on the London stage, but nothing has prepared me for this.
Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Timothy West. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Good people of Banbury, I am here to extol the virtues of the Oxford Canal, which passes through beautiful countryside and beside delightful villages, eventually to arrive at Banbury Town, whose old-world elegance they will have to imagine because somebody has put up a shopping mall and a bloody great car park in the way.
However, the voyagers can still travel onwards, all the way to Coventry, if they so desire. But today they will see a different canal from the age-old beauty we once knew, no longer coal-laden, but graffiti-inscribed, no longer picturesque for the entire stretch, but boarded up in parts, battling developers through Jericho and American mink through St. Edwards. But this is still a remarkable inland waterway. You don't have to take a boat on it. You can walk along it, or cycle, or sit and fish, or just be there and enjoy looking at the flora and fauna and listening to the tinkle of the water.
It is a beautiful gift. So, thank God for this beautiful canal, and God save the Queen.
Well done. Well done. It was very
Thank you.
For us, and so many others, this is far more than just a canal. It's a way of life.
It's a living, breathing history of another world.
It's a home.
It's a family.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
And the reason we're able to enjoy the Oxford and the rest of Britain's canals today is thanks to the perseverance of people like Tom and Sonia Rolt. let us keep their legacy safe for the next generation to enjoy.
Next week, London, our home city. A chance to meet old friends.
Lovely to be here. Lovely to see you.
In a place we think we know.
I'm sure we're meant to be going down there.
Becomes a journey into a strange, hidden world.
I hope we can find some moorings. If not, don't quite know what we do, really.
That's next week at the same time. Next Sunday, found under a car park in 2012, it's almost time for the reburial of Richard III. Channel 4 is live at Leicester Cathedral for the first of 3 special programmes at 5:10. But next tonight, as if one wasn't enough, another mystery face turns up for Ralph. Sultry, dramatic Indian summers.